Edward Snowden may be in the spotlight, but according to multiple sources, at 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, Army Judge Denise Lind is expected to deliver her verdict in the military trial of Bradley Manning, the Army private accused of giving 700,000 classified documents to WikiLeaks. In closing arguments, defense lawyer David Coombs said that Manning was a naive but brave and conscientious objector to the wartime conduct of the United States. The defense made its case after the prosecution argued that Manning had willingly given classified information to al-Qaeda and other enemies by posting the documents on the internet for all to see. Aiding the enemy is the most serious of the 21 charges Manning faces and carries with it a life sentence. The Army private has already pleaded guilty to 10 lesser offenses, ones that could put him in prison for 20 years. The outcome of Manning's trial is sure to have repercussions for Edward Snowden. Both men have ties to WikiLeaks, whose founder, Julian Assange, published Manning's leaks in 2010 and has aided Snowden in his flight from justice. While Snowden's leaks have triggered a massive debate over government surveillance, Manning's military trial has received comparatively little attention, despite the fact that his documents revealed a very dark side to the U.S. war on terror. Just a warning, the video you are about to see is graphic.
Light them all up.
202 traffic, 260s.
Come on, fire. Hey, Roger. Keep shooting. This guy just drove over a body. Yeah.
I got a wounded girl. We didn't take the rest of mile.
Oh, it's their fault for bringing their kids to a battle. That's right.
That video, which showed the killing of 2 Reuters journalists in 2007, came to light as a result of Manning's leaks after the military refused Reuters' request to access it. In similar fashion, Manning's trial has been subject to tight media restrictions. No cameras or electronic devices have been allowed in court, and no official transcript has been made available. Reporters are now being subject to intensive searches upon entering the courtroom and are watched over by armed military police officers in the Media Filing Center. Joining us now from Denver is Salon columnist and best-selling author David Sirota, and joining us from Baltimore is artist and activist Clark Steckley, author of The United States versus PFC Bradley Manning, a graphic account from inside the courtroom. Clark, I would like to go to you first, seeing as you are one of the very few people that has been in the room as the Manning trial has unfolded. Can you tell us about the climate inside the courtroom and what you've seen so far?
Well, it's a very tense climate in the courtroom right now. We just saw the wrapping up of closing arguments on Thursday and Friday. The prosecution took the entirety of Thursday to make their arguments, over 7 hours. Ashton Fine repeated himself over and over to basically filibuster the courtroom and the press attention on Thursday, so that the stories coming out were essentially just the arguments of the prosecution. And those arguments didn't really add up. Fine was trying to say that Bradley was an anarchist, that he was trying to gain notoriety and fame, but that the logic there doesn't add up as to why he would do this anonymously. The following day, on Friday, we saw David Coombs, Bradley's civilian lawyer, present a very heartfelt case from the heart, with no paper, not standing behind the podium, going directly up to Denise Lind and showing her the collateral murder video, which we just saw there, and telling her not to detach herself from what she's seeing, like the gunners and the pilots in that video did on July 12th, 2007.
Clark, I want to ask you, you were removed from the courtroom on Friday, and we know you're an activist. You were also, you had media credentials. There seemed to be a mix of media folks and activists in the courtroom. Tell us about the dynamic there and why you were asked to leave the courtroom.
Well, I am not able to comment on that, and I agreed to come on this show, understanding that we would discuss Manning and not my banning from the courtroom. But I can tell you this. I have written a letter to Denise Lind. I gave that to David Coombs, and he submitted it to her. And she has submitted that to the garrison commander. And so I'm waiting for a reply back as to whether I will be allowed back on Fort Meade base.
Could you at least comment on, we have a tweet from Charlie Savage, who's the New York Times reporter who's covering the Manning trial, and he says in his tweet, "Creepy, having armed military police in camo patrolling behind each row of reporters and looking over shoulders as we take notes on the Manning trial today." Is that the atmosphere in the courtroom?
Well, I think this trial has had an unprecedented case of censorship, starting with the fact that no legal filings and no transcripts, official transcripts, were coming from the court. And this is, very shocking. This is a trial about secrecy, and they've emphasized the fact that they are keeping track of all social media, the messages coming out, and we've had, actually armed MPs standing behind us while we're tweeting, posting our stories, and it is definitely an environment that is very tense, and it boggles my mind that they would be so clamped down on free speech when this is a trial all about free speech.
Well, yeah, David, I want to get your thoughts on the Manning trial, because certainly the implications of this verdict are broad. I mean, the notion that Manning could be convicted of aiding the enemy because he gave documents to an organization that then posted them to the internet. The interlinkage between the internet and aiding the enemy has vast repercussions for journalists in the future, whistleblowers, and people concerned about civil liberties.
Absolutely. I mean, the conflation of the idea that if you put something on the internet, that means you're giving it to the terrorists. I mean, you're essentially publishing it for the world to see. And yes, there are some terrorists in the world, but the government's case is a case that essentially would, I think, create a situation where journalists would have to worry, activists would have to worry, whistleblowers would have to worry, the average citizen would have to worry that if they put something on the internet, the government can turn around and say, if the government doesn't like it, and that the act of putting it on the internet is an act of aiding Al-Qaeda. It's a ludicrous. It sounds ludicrous, but you're right. It has a potential legal ramifications to criminalize the act of blowing the whistle and the act of journalism.
Well, and I guess, David, you've been writing about national security concerns and sort of where we are at this moment in time with both Snowden and obviously the Manning trial in the background. And you've talked about James Clapper and his behavior, if you will, on the stand. And I'll read an excerpt by James Bamford in the New York Review of Books. He says, "Of course, the U.S. is not a totalitarian society, and no equivalent of Big Brother runs it. Still, the U.S. intelligence agencies seem to have adopted Orwell's idea of doublethink. Clapper said that his previous answer was not a lie. He just chose to respond in the, quote, least untruthful manner." And you think about that wording, and you hear what Clark is telling us about military personnel standing over media in a trial that has been largely blocked from American eyes and ears, or global eyes and ears, and there is an Orwellian sort of strain here.
Absolutely. I mean, it's classic news speak. Clapper is allowed to go before Congress and to lie, to blatantly lie to lawmakers who are trying to oversee the NSA when he's asked a question about whether mass surveillance is happening. And there's no punishment for him. We haven't seen the government move to charge him with perjury, but the government is charging aggressively people like Bradley Manning and pursuing Edward Snowden. So there's a complete double standard here. And there's this old saying that says, look, they're public officials. That means that we're supposed to know as much as possible about what they're doing. And that's exactly what the Obama administration, I think, is trying to prevent.
Clark, there is a lot of debate over, what sort of punishment both Bradley Manning and Edward Snowden should receive. But the public editor of the New York Times, Margaret Sullivan, reminded us back in March of what we have gotten in terms of information from these leaks. And I will reread her words. "Imagine if American citizens never learned about the abuse of prisoners at Abu Ghraib. Imagine not knowing about the brutal treatment of terror suspects at U.S. government black sites, or about the drone program that is expanding under President Obama, or the Bush administration's warrantless wiretapping of Americans. This is a world without leaks." There is a lot that we are debating right now that we wouldn't even have on the table to debate were it not for these leakers. Do you think, in the courtroom at least, there is a successful attempt to paint Manning as having done some sort of service in terms of the national conversation?
Well, it's been very obvious to me, sitting in this courtroom and listening to the prosecution, that there has been no evidence whatsoever of any harm caused by these leaks. I have seen, however, great things come out of them, more accurate body counts. We have an idea of who in Guantanamo is innocent and why we've been holding them for so long. Arab Spring, I believe, is a direct result from the State Department cable leaks. And none of these things have caused the U.S. security any harm whatsoever. As David Coombs said, the government is saying the sky is falling, but the fact is the sky is not falling. And he also used the analogy of the emperor has no clothes. And what I've seen in 5 years of the Obama administration is a complete reversal of his 2008 campaign promises to protect whistleblowers, where in fact Obama has gone after more whistleblowers. I believe we're up to 8, maybe possibly 9 now. And that's triple of all other presidents combined.
And David, I want to bring you in on that, on the subject of the administration and how they are moving and or responding to all of this that's happening. We know that Attorney General Eric Holder outlined some new guidance for obtaining records of press records. We know that there is news that we are transferring 2 detainees in Gitmo. There is Justin Amash's amendment that failed in the House, but certainly did not divide along classic party lines. You had Nancy Pelosi and Michelle Bachmann voting against it. You had other sort of strange coalitions. Is that evidence that this conversation is taking hold in American society, that we are debating and trying to perhaps reform some of these policies?
Absolutely. I'm very encouraged by the bipartisan nature of the criticism of all of this that's happening right now. And I think that Clark really alludes to what's really going on here. The Obama administration is prosecuting people who are a political problem for the Obama administration. They are not prosecuting people on the basis of national security concerns. The political problem that's what's raised by the Snowden and by Manning is the fact that the national security state is out of control, and that embarrasses the Obama administration.
Well, it is certainly a conversation that we will continue to have. The verdict is expected tomorrow at 1 p.m. David Sirota, thanks for your time, and thank you to Clark Steckley.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will have more when we return after the break.